You already recorded?
Yeah, I already started. Yeah,
Oh, man.
I already started.
All right,
Oh
well,
my
fuck.
goodness.
Let's we might as well. Okay, so we might as well just give everyone a bit of a recap of like who the fuck we are, because I'm sure there's gonna be people that already know Mahone and like the odd brown community is gonna know who Persian is, but like nobody knows who I am. So
Starting it off racist, eh? Great way to start the podcast. That's
that's what we do, dude.
great. Can you pronounce your last name for us all?
Lazowskis? No, but yeah. Why don't we just do like a quick intro of like who everyone is and stuff, and then we can just jump into this shit.
All right, how about you
Dan-
do that then? You're good at that.
Wait, you want me to
Hey,
intro?
Yeah, you should do it. You're the club
You want
leader,
me to-
aren't you? The
so you-
YW
so you-
club leader.
So you want me to intro who you guys are?
Yeah, just introduce yourself and
Alright,
us, and
alright.
then we can give background info if we want, and then after that we'll just go into it.
Alright. Okay, so for people that don't know who we are, so my name is Laz. I've been around for God long time, probably like 20 years. Played pretty much all versions of the game. Been around for a long time. Been a coach, been caster, been player, been a lot of fucking roles. Then we got Danny Mahone, which he's like a collegiate superstar. Guy wins a couple locals, and
Exposing
he is.
everyone.
He's also like he's my partner in casting, so him and I are the duo. And then we got Persian, which is Samir is his real name, and he's been around for a long, long time. Been playing, man, I don't know. I've been playing since pretty much early days of Source for sure. Played high level of Source. Played with me for quite a few seasons on various teams in CS:GO, and yeah, I think that's kind of it. They're both in Vancouver, and I'm in Kelowna. I think that's it so far.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, good.
So, anyways, I don't know where we should really start here, but I was thinking, let's just get into maybe a bit of our background of how we started playing CS, because I don't actually know that from you guys. I'm pretty sure you guys don't actually know that from me either, like how we actually started in the first place.
Mhm. Okay, well, I started playing. Or how far back? Counter Strike time? Or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
beginning?
literally, yeah. Like the first time you touched CS, like what was that?
Oh,
Like you're out of the womb, and when do you
Yeah.
like get your fingers on that keyboard?
Yeah,
okay, so yeah. So I just got done at Laz's mom's place, and I was coming back, and I saw him playing. I'm just kidding. Um, so okay, I played Call of Duty competitively, and Soldier of Fortune 2, and then I tried getting into like 1.5 and 1.6, but I couldn't. I wasn't very good at it, and people were just way too good at the time, and so and there was a little bit of like a bad rep coming from an outsider, like having never touched 1.6 or CS, that people cheated in Counter Strike. So I'd get spammed through walls. I was like, oh, of course this guy's cheating if he's spamming me through a wall. So I never really got into it. But then when Source was about to come out, I knew that was my time to jump in. So I basically played right from the get go. When I think the beta was like a Dust map, I think it was just Dust, and then you played that, and then the full game release, and then I went competitive in that. Did really well. I actually didn't play too much on the West Coast in Source. I had joined an East Coast team called LGD, and we won Open. I think we came second a couple times in Maine. We got knocked out of the Invite qualifier and this was all Cal. There was no ESEA at the time, and we got knocked out in the qualifier by Clown's team. They rung for some 1.6 players because there was no cap on like joining the roster, or leaving the roster at the time for that qualification. So they joined the roster, beat us, and yeah, that's like basically. Oh, and then we played CS:GO with you, Laz, and yeah, just won some local lands and stuff. Nothing too big, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
yeah. I guess I guess I'll talk about my background. I guess I first started. CS wasn't necessarily my first game that I really played competitively. I guess, although it is technically because of how big it was. but before I used to play racing games and stuff like that, and I was pretty competitive in one game, and then pretty much when high school started, I transitioned to CS, CS Source. I played with like my high school friends at the time, and we had like a little team. We scrimmed other teams and stuff like that, and then eventually there became a point where they didn't really want to play CS anymore, so they moved on to like League of Legends or whatever. And then at that time, I had always only been playing in like pub servers and stuff like that, so 24/7 Office and like 24/7 Dust, and that's when that's when at the time there were a couple other Vancouver people that played in those servers. I don't know if anyone in this community is gonna know at this point, but probably if anyone remembers Zen or Dragon, they're the ones that brought me on to my pretty much my first team. We played like Eco League at the time, if I recall, because Cal just died.
Nice.
Yeah, Cal just died when when I started. So played in Eco League for a little bit, and it was basically just like a team of Vancouver people. And then eventually, big thing for me though was I couldn't really commit to playing a team because my parents didn't really let me play on the weekdays. So it was really hard to like play on a team when you're under those kind of circumstances. And it's not like I could have snuck around either because my computer was always in the living room. Um, but other than that, like I didn't really play in many leagues because of that reason. I only just went to LANs for the most part, and which is where I basically met Persian and Laz at this point. Uh, then after I got into like university, then I started playing a few more leagues more often, and then yeah, I pretty much got myself into a point where I played at a bunch of LANs, some seasons of ESCA, and then eventually transitioned to hosting LAN tournaments in Vancouver, and then also more on a larger scale with the Collegiate Star League, where I've been a community manager, a caster, a content creator. So overall, my experience as a player is a small part of what I've done in Counter Strike. I'd consider, but overall, yeah, that's basically the experience that I've had. I've played open, intermediate, main, few matches at MDL, and I think that's pretty much it.
Nice. This is me now, hey? Um, so for me, I've been playing for quite a while. Like I played late 1.6. I actually played with all my friends from high school, so I played with a lot of locals and a lot of LAN centers we used to go to all the time and do a lot of 10-mans and stuff like that. And I was pretty competitive, started getting into it, got my computer, started playing in like online leagues. Played 1.6 for a really long time, made like a local team that made it up to Maine and Cal. Cal died, and then we also played, I think it was that Eco League 2, or I think it was called like Built on Energy or something like BOE.
Oh, I remember
That
that.
was
I
like
remember.
the,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was one of the two, and I think it was BOE, and we won that season. We actually went undefeated, which was hilarious. So we did that, made Maine, and then we went to Source, transitioned over to Source because obviously that was becoming the new thing, and CGS happened. We wanted to see if like we can compete. Still the same team for quite a while. A few guys left, then we rebuilt a roster, and then eventually kind of met up with some of the guys in Vancouver. So some of my boys like Bert and Doyle and all Persian, and then eventually Mahone too. Kind of fast tracking a bit, like went to a bunch of LANs, met a lot of kids in the local scene. Went to our first LAN. I actually played against Mahone at our first my first Source LAN, and that was out in Victoria, BC. Showed them what it was like to play some 1.6ers. That was actually probably like honestly, that was if I had a LAN to be like super psyched about, that was probably the one LAN. Just because like nobody knew who we were, and like we just came out of nowhere, and people were just like, "Oh, these guys are."
No, yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely agree.
So it felt good. So, anyways, long story short, for people that know, I stomped Mahomes' team, freaked him out, won the tournament. And then, anyways, sorry, I'm just thinking about it. But yeah, no. So then we fast track again. Played Source for quite some time. Played with like a lot of people in the Northwest scene. I've really kind of embodied myself a lot in that scene. Where Persian said he was out east all the time. Like I actually did the exact opposite, and I just played with preferably people that I either met at a LAN or I knew of them from another friend. I kind of value like having good friendships and stuff like that. So that was a huge thing for me too. Anyways, I'm kind of going off track here, but so did that for a long time. Switched over to Go, played with Mahone on a team, Persian, all those guys. Played a couple locals as well. Played main in both CS Source and Go for a little bit of time. IM and then just a bunch of open seasons. And I think that's pretty much it. But I started CS when I was in like grade. I was young, like grade. Oh man, grade like 8. So I would have been like young teenager.
Yeah, I started when I was in grade 8 as well. So at this point,
Okay.
it's been a while. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Such a cool feeling too. Like when you play your like brothers and stuff. Like my brother got me into it.
Hmm.
Then I beat my brother. Like I thought he was really good.
That's the
And
same
I
case
don't
for
know.
me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. I got in myself, actually. I didn't have a brother or anything. I just independently started playing, and maybe it was because I was competitive as a kid or something, but I just really liked the idea. Like my first competitive game was like, do you remember GameSpy?
Yeah, I remember GameSpy.
Yeah. So I would play Quake on it, and you'd have to like log into GameSpy and find servers. And I remember like clan matches was like you were in a gang basically, and you'd like you had your server, and this was like my territory, and this was my gang on this side, and then you would like clan match people, and yeah, it was interesting. That was my first experience
Yeah, I
with
think
like
I think for yeah, it's kind of interesting as I was just about to point out. Like, I don't know if any of us still remember, but I remember when I first started scrimming. Like, just because I always came from a pub background. Like when I first started scrimming, I always took every scrim like so seriously. Like like, like your pride is on the line type of thing. I don't know if you guys felt the same way when you guys first started playing.
yeah, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it was that was yeah, I even remember like I don't remember the name, but I remember visually what it looked like when everyone was in that server, and like specifically when like the guy was like, "Hey, are we ready to go?" kind of thing. Because there's no voice chat, I was just typing. And
That's
then
worse.
like that map, and then there was like um what do you call those, like Batman has it, that gun you shoot and it like sticks to the wall, and you like it has a string and you kind of go to it. What's that gun called? Not gun. It's like a no. You guys aren't helping me here.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like some kind of grappling hook type of thing? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
referring
grappling
to?
hook. Yeah, exactly. They had that in the game, so you'd like grapple hook around. It was like a part of the game being like crazy. But yeah, it was a lot of fun back then as a kid.
Yeah. I guess I gotta ask since Laz brought it up, like, because Laz was saying that. Oh, did Laz lag out?
Yeah, he did.
Oh man. Yeah, he'll come back.
Okay, well let's keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going.
What were you gonna
Anyways, I was gonna ask, like, how Laz was saying that, basically, a lot of his experience with teams and stuff like that was within the Northwest, right? Like people he knew, type of thing. I was very similar as well,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, he's gone. Oh, is he back?
I don't know.
Anyways, I was gonna ask, like, why didn't you play with people in our area? Like, was there a specific reason, or did you just
Um.
did you
Okay,
just kind
so
of like
we
move on to like other people very quickly, type of thing?
it's actually weird. So, um, yeah. So the guys I did play with local, I don't know if you remember this guy. Did you play Source?
Yeah, I played Source.
Okay, early Source or like late?
I would say I'd consider later, like
Okay.
2011 and beyond.
Oh, okay. So there was a guy named. So I tried getting into the West scene, right? Like, so I it was weird. Like I was in the scene for the West, but I was playing on an East team. It was super bizarre. So essentially, what had happened was that I was in the 10 mans and stuff with like Clown, Mo, and like all those like really good players at the time.
Yeah,
They had they would do it in MIRC where you were there for
yeah, I was
MIRC.
around with IRC
Yeah,
days.
yeah, amazing. I miss it so much. But yeah, so MIRC for you were in Immense channel, which was like one of the teams, and all these guys. It was like this weird tight community, and everyone would get on. Everyone knew to get on at like 11, 12 o'clock, and we would basically 10 man till like 3, 4 in the morning. And yeah, it was bad. And so doing that, it was cool because I was close to those guys in like the West, but I just felt like locally like people, it wasn't, people weren't as good. Like people were more like 1.6 local as far
Hmm.
as I felt like.
Yeah.
um so if I wanted to play like at a high level, I was playing with like the guys that were in California. Then I just by coincidence I started talking to this one guy who was an East Coast guy who owned a land center. And then he's like, "Hey, like, yeah, let's play. Like, I'm thinking of making this team, and I have a friend that wants to play. He has crazy experience um, in 1.6, and he wants to try. He wants to play Source. And he's gonna play with us. So maybe if you want to come try out." And to be honest with you, I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll try out," as a joke. Like, I took that tryout as like more of like, okay, let's see how good or bad these guys are. And so I join, and it's weird because this one guy, Kato, I ended up playing with him for like I played multiple games with him from like 2005 to 2008, 9. Literally that entire time, every day we'd hang out and play a game with each other for that long of a time period.
That's crazy.
Um, yeah, and he was in New York. I was over here. He'd always like, the joke was I lived in Alaska, because I was in Canada and I was way in the West Coast. And then so so we just literally started playing together, and then we made a team. We won open. We were like huge underdogs. Like no one, like in Cal forums, they'd always post these predictions every week, and we're like,
Yeah, I
oh,
remember seeing those. I remember seeing
dude,
those. Yeah.
I wish I could find those because every prediction in our open was just, oh, they're gonna lose, they're gonna lose, they're gonna lose every time. And we went through the entire open bracket at that time when CS Source was like super competitive. We went through, we the most amount of rounds we lost was 9, and it was, I think, in like the second round or something. But other than that, we obliterated everyone. And in Cal Open finals, we were against some guys called like Bears or something like that, and they all had like bears in their name or something. And everyone, these guys were like fan favorites, and they were like, "Oh, they're gonna win! Like they're so good, blah blah blah." And we crushed them. It was BO1 back then, and we played Train.
Isn't
And
that so weird? Like that's
dude,
BO1?
dude, I went 18-0 on that map, and I was playing with like 25 FPS because Train was like notoriously bad on computers, and I had a shitty computer anyways. And then you'd record the demo, and you'd lose 5 FPS right away. And then and so I went 18-0. The only time I died was the only round that they won. And then Kato also went like 15-1 or something like that. It was like, it was crazy stats. Like we were annihilating them. They got one round on T side, and it was 16-1 them or something, 16-2 them or something ridiculous. I'll never forget that roster because I was extremely toxic in a way that you can't really be that way anymore. But it was like constructive. Like it was like football style of like,
Yeah, yeah.
why are we not living up to this expectation and this like level of perfection? So like in scrims, it was crazy because we would actually practice properly. Like we'd go in, and if like I remember specifically Contra, we couldn't take a site properly. So we literally, we were losing like 7-0 on T side, and I was like, listen, we're going A again. We're going A again. We just kept going A until we figured it out. And then people, they kept kind of complaining, like, let's just go somewhere else. I was like,
Mm.
no, this is practice. It's the point. Like, I like, and then so it was just weird because it was like moments like that you don't do on teams anymore.
Yeah,
People don't want to just do the same thing. Or the other team will just counter strat you in a scrim instead of being like, oh, this is good practice.
yeah, yeah. No, that's
That
true.
was, yeah, but that's why I was on the Ace team. Like I made a really good friend, and we just ended up playing together the whole time.
Have you ever met him in real life?
No, we haven't. Even though he's like numerous times we've like tried, and he's invited me to New York and stuff like that. And like, yeah, but I've just never met him. He actually recently got married, so congratulations to him. But yeah, really lost touch with him a little bit, but like, still love the guy no matter what. Like the amount of times that we spent together and stuff.
Yeah, no,
Very,
that's a
very
big
close.
thing. It's a
Yeah.
big thing I'd say in CS. Like, it's definitely a lot of times, at least for me personally, like a lot of people I've met in CS that I'd consider lifelong friends in a way. You know, it's like
Hmm.
even if you don't necessarily see them, or maybe if you only see them like once a year, maybe even less in some cases. I don't know. It's crazy how like a game can kind of just bring us together.
It's so crazy,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Do you like what's your guys' like longest known friend in CS? Not and it's a little weird with you last because like you grew up with the guys that you played with essentially, you
Yeah.
and Reese.
I think at least in my case, it would probably be Buck Jason. I met him when I was 16. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know him yet. Like basically we were introduced through like a team that Zen was building that I said like my first team. That was how I was introduced to him, and yeah, basically he lived in the Vancouver area. And yeah, I think even now like even now we still keep in touch from time to time. I'd consider him a lifelong friend that I've exclusively met through CS. Like
Yeah.
for you guys, like I met you guys a bit later, so I mean that's not technically the longest then.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. And then what
What?
year was that you met?
I met him. I think I met him in person, like in real life, in like 2009. So it was
Or
2 years
did you meet him
before my.
online?
Huh? I met him
Or when?
online. It was probably around the same year too, because
Oh wow.
yeah,
Makes sense.
basically what happened was I I organized a small event to go to. Do you know eSpot in Richmond?
Yeah,
E-Spa?
dude.
Yeah,
Oh.
I organized a small event there, and then that's pretty much like how we met for the first time in real life. So that had to have been like 2009. Yeah, at least 2009. So 2 years
Yeah.
before my first real LAN.
Crazy. Wow.
It's funny, man. Like it's so weird how like everybody has like different like ways of growing up with the game. Like I literally like I was like like you know like when you're a teenager you're kind of like a mall rat or something or like you always hang out in a certain area. I literally just like was like a land rat. That's all I did. I didn't have a PC for so many years, man. I just like my parents, like my mom would just drop me off to either one of two LAN centers. It was hilarious.
Did you not have a computer at home?
No, not for like the longest
Oh,
time.
so
Like I
that's why.
think, yeah. So I just literally cruised the LAN centers and just crushed it. And then
Just
finally got a
spreading the last name.
oh, dude, I knew like everyone. It was awesome. It was like its own like little community, which was sweet. Met so many cool people and stuff. I don't know. It's just it was fun. Like daily tournaments or like weekly tournaments and stuff. It was sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Dude, it's weird. I still play with a couple guys that I've known since like 2005. Like
It's
one of them was
awesome.
from CS, Egyptian. We didn't really like hang out too much in
Oh yeah.
CS. Yeah, the guy who got banned and knocked me out of playoffs, like got me kicked out there and cheated. Still out there. And the other guy is Tony, which actually started playing WoW. Like Kato got me into WoW, gave me an account. He's like, try this game, it's cool. And then met Tony in WoW, and we still like play and chat like every day still. So it's very bizarre. And I've never met the guy. For all
Yeah.
I know, he's like a weirdo and he's lying about the
Yeah.
and his
It's
kid.
crazy. I think Mahone made a really good point though. Like I think like it's funny how you can meet these people and like I consider most of the people I met like really good friends. Like I mean, I might only see them the odd time of the year, but like I mean, the amount of times you play with them or like chat with them and stuff, like it's I don't know. You just have those good memories and stuff, and it's fun, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how I look at it. I mean, I actually like a guy I used to play with. I was thinking about relationships and CS and stuff, and a guy I met like a couple way back in the day with 1.6, like he moved to England, and so when I went traveling for half a year, like I stayed at his house for like 2 weeks near the end of my trip
That's
before I
crazy.
flew home. Yeah, and we solely met playing on a team together. And he was like, "Yeah, man, just come
Really?
crash at my house." Yeah, swear to God, it was crazy. It was really cool. Like he was just like, "Yeah, man," and super outgoing, nice guy. SA3 dude, shout out. But anyways, yeah, he was awesome. He just like crashed at my house and we just hung out. It was good. It's crazy. And then I thought about that too. I was like, wow, like literally a relationship through CS.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
You want me to tell you a funny relationship through CS?
What?
Funny, go the opposite direction, kind of. So when I was playing Source, Laz, you know K Shack, obviously.
Yeah.
I remember playing with him in CS Source early on, and like chatting with him, and we were good buddies. I think I even had him on my friends list at the time. Like it was
What do you
all
mean friends
good.
list? Isn't that a given?
Yeah. But like, like so I'm leading up to something. I'm leading up to something. And then I was like, yeah, cool, and all this stuff. And then, this Victoria land that Laz had mentioned earlier starts rolling around, and then, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm going to that. Yeah, I'll come by and say hi and stuff. And he's like, okay. I go and I say hi to him at land, and he's just like, oh, hey, dude. Oh, okay. Like as if I'm like some stranger, and I was like, what the hell was up with that guy? I was tilted. But then
Did
he
he not
obviously
know who you
later.
were?
No, I told him like, oh hey, like I'm Persian, like whatever, blah blah blah. Like I was on this team, yeah, we're playing, and he was just like very, very like passive. But I guess maybe it was weird, or he was going into a match or whatever. I mean, later on, obviously, it was like fine because I spoke to him, like
Yeah.
on Laz's team. I think we went to a LAN together even. So, but it was just funny at the time. He was like very like, "Who are you? Like, why are you talking to me?" Kind of attitude.
That's pretty
He's
interesting.
toxic. He's
Yeah.
toxic with me.
I've never had that experience, fortunately, but I'll share a couple of my other experiences. Just like, yeah, I always find it so crazy to meet people in real life that you know first online. At least, like in my experience with the collegiate scene, like I've been to like maybe two, three, maybe four collegiate LAN events now, where it's like crazy to meet these people that live on like basically different areas of North America, and then like first like you know of them online or you might have played against them online, whatever that deal is, and then you actually get to meet them in real life. Like I just find that like crazy. Like I never would have thought that CS would have brought me to this point where it's like you meet people from you know all over North America type of thing.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. You know what? It even brings Brazilians and Americans together and then breaks them apart. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you hear KNG or whatever is joining?
Well, that's the word right now, right? It's not official
Yeah.
yet.
No, apparently it's like per sources that he's going to be joining MIRB. So made in Brazil is actually going to be made in Brazil.
That's good. I mean, that was the honestly like the most confusing thing I've ever seen. Like the brand back in the day was the same thing, like a Brazilian team with that logo and that name. Like I didn't understand why Tarek and Stewie joined. I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. Like for
Don't
a
know
marketing
either.
perspective, it literally was the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah,
I
were they
thought.
doing okay? Because their rank seemed fine. Like the HLTV rank seemed like, oh, okay, fourth, you're pretty solid.
I think the
But
main
Yeah,
thing of it was that they're just not living up to their expectations. Like when you have five players who are basically like stars of all the respective teams, right? Like I think the expectations were just like they're supposed to be better, and they just never met those.
mm,
I just like I don't know if I really agree with this whole like Taco and Zeus thing. Like I mean I get it. I mean that was the winning recipe back in the but like I mean is it still gonna be working now? Like do you know what I mean? Like I feel like once you kind of split something that was working, it's like Fnatic. Fnatic did the exact same thing. They split up, went to Godsend for a while. The other guys went somewhere else. Then they tried
yeah,
it again, and they were still kind of shit. I don't know.
I don't know.
I
It's
mean,
hard to
maybe it'll
say.
be good.
It's hard to say because I think in this case, like Taco, I think he performed better like in Liquid. So who knows what he's bringing to the table this time? Like what I'm saying is, he had a different experience in Liquid compared to just like he wasn't on another Brazilian team is what I'm saying.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I just think that
It's an
players
interesting. It's
like
an interesting
Taco.
move.
Yeah, I think players like Taco get undervalued. So they're thinking like, "Whoa, we got Stewie 2K. That's crazy firepower." But it's not addition. Like a team isn't like 1 plus 1 equals 2, and Stewie's like the equivalent of three. It doesn't work that way. It's like a player like Taco brings like the the extra that a Stewie doesn't have that mindset. I don't think. I think it's a very like focused mindset on, um, being that fragger and being that playmaker.
Yeah,
Which,
for sure. I was actually
I think they're going to be worse.
this is a good question. Have you guys ever thought about this on our own teams that we've played on, in terms of when you've thought about cutting somebody or any type of roster changes? Like, do you guys have any interesting stories on that front?
What, like changing rosters or like trying to keep like the same group?
I would say like any instance you've had where like you're on a team and you've thought about replacing somebody because various reasons why you think one person would be better than the other.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, Laz and me were on a team, and there was an incident. I'm not gonna name names, but there's a player that the topic came up of. There's just a guy who wasn't really working out, but it did work because because he fit this very specific role that worked really well. And then you thought about it, and it was kind of worth it. Like the downsides were okay. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if Laz knows which guy I'm talking about.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it tucks
Like,
a player to play with.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think, yeah. Like, I mean, I've like my philosophy when I played was, I think, a lot different than a lot of other people. Like, for me, like I knew I wasn't gonna go like big stage pro and stuff, but I wanted to play like main, and I like back in the day, I really wanted to get to premier at least. So for me, like my philosophy always was to play with the same group guys, work on teamwork and cohesion and all that other stuff. So really didn't want to make roster changes. Like when I played in the past, like 1.6, I never made. We honestly made like minimal roster changes, and I think it was for the best reasons. But now in Go, like when I was playing kind of near the end of my time playing, I mean, I played with like a big group of guys for a long time, and there came to a point where like there was just people butting heads, and it was kind of to a point where you're like, okay, like, what do you do, right? There's a lot of ego. There's just a lot of attitude. So it's different. I think when you get older too. So, but yes, I've had a lot of those experiences. And to answer your question shortly, it was like I haven't really made a lot of roster changes. I've done it before. It works out sometimes, like a honeymoon period. But I also think I feel like sometimes it's really good to like really try your best to make it work, unless it's just really really like negative and toxic.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. What would you say is like?
What
Would
about you?
I guess I should go into this. Yeah, I've had quite a few experiences like this. Um, I'm just trying to think what would be the best example. Basically, I guess I'd have to just run through. I guess my UVC team is probably the best example I can bring. Um, yeah, it's like there are many times where basically when the team first started, my expectations were a lot lower in terms of like how we'd perform, because when the league first launched, it was basically, I just wanted to have a team together, and at that time it was so hard to find people who played at UVC at the time, um, just because the game wasn't that big yet, and there just simply weren't that many people who played. So basically, it was just like the people I looked for were just people who would play the game and not be too toxic, essentially, right? Like basically not toxic at all. But as time went on, like, and like as the scene got more competitive and stuff like that, a lot of the things I had to weigh in on were like, how is this person's attitude in terms of like wanting to improve, right? Something I always noticed was, at least with some of the older people that I played with, like from the start, they wouldn't really care as much about improving as they did as I wanted to later on. Obviously, just because, like I said, when I first started the team, like it didn't matter. Like I just wanted you to just play basically. But now it's like it turned into a point where it's like I needed them to actually care about improving and stuff like that. So I've had to make roster changes like based on that, right? Even if they're a good person and stuff like that. And it's definitely hard. I find it a lot harder to deal with especially for like a college team where you meet each other in real life and stuff like that, like you know kind of often, as opposed to a team that's just exclusively online where you know you can kind of make these decisions and then you can only ever hear about it through Steam type of thing.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, I've had to face that a few times, and also just making roster changes is not easy. Like every time I do it, I always feel bad. But at the end of the day, I always think about, at least in my time when I ran the UBC team, I always thought about what would be the best for like the team slash the brand or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I didn't lay it all on the field to like make this team the best I possibly could have, even if that meant that I might hurt like some personal relationships along the way. It was just basically I just wanted to do what was best for the team, and I don't think anybody can necessarily disagree with that. How I went about it though might be a bit questionable, but my
Yeah,
intent
I
was
think
there.
that's normal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest thing too. Is like, um, is that like when you're in that kind of a situation, it's always good to like have those kind of conversations in the beginning of when your team's first formed. I think, like, if you kind of understand your expectations and what you guys kind of want. Like some teams were hard. Like Persian probably knows what team I'm talking about, where like that kind of a conversation would never happen because it was so toxic. But um, but I mean, previous teams that I did play on, I mean, we kind of like I had a different philosophy than some of the other people on my team. There was actually a few times where I actually pulled myself from the active roster because like I burnt, and
Oh boy.
Danny knows this, but I mean I burnt out, and like it was to a point where like these guys were trying to play full time and wanted to play, and like I just like you had no drive, I had no gas in the tank. Like I was just like felt like I was forced to come on the computer every day, and I was like I can't do it.
Yeah, I
So
think
I
that's definitely a big difference. What you're pointing out, like if you ever feel like you're forced to have to come on to the computer, I think you're at the point where you're just too burnt out. Like you just don't want to play the game anymore.
it's tough.
Yeah, there's
Go ahead, sorry.
no, yeah, I agree that for sure there could be that feeling of burnt out, but I think it has to do with like two main things. One is are the people. I think like the people you play with should inspire your play. Like you should want to get on and play with them. Like that's why when you like I really enjoyed playing with like Kato and Tux or like two guys that were fun to play with was because there was a lot of like self improvement going on, but also like the game was just fun at the time. Um, and so like for that feeling, like I'm sure those teams you probably pulled yourself or like you felt forced to get on. I bet you weren't really hanging out with those guys either outside of Counter Strike or talking to them very much outside of Counter Strike. So there's definitely like I think a chemistry aspect of it that was probably missing there too.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. I if anything, I'm the worst when it comes to this. Like even if there's one person that I don't necessarily feel comfortable with, I honestly find it so hard to play. Like I have to have the exact like right five for me to like feel completely comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think you made a good point too. Like when you have an online relationship, it's so much different than when you've like met them in person and stuff, and you kind of have this more of a
Yeah,
personable.
it's more person. Yeah, yeah.
It's tough, right? And then like it's so awkward to like. I mean, I'm in a career path where like I do stuff like this, so for me, it's not really that hard to like get rid of somebody, but it's a really awkward conversation because like and especially if the person isn't expecting it. Like I mean, there was times when like I used to play and like we had conversations about people performance and stuff, and we'd be like, yeah, like I mean, we would just say like, like we just want you. What can we do to make you better? And like, what can we do to like support you and stuff? Because we just feel like you're struggling.
Hmm.
I don't know. I had it. I've done it to people. We've all done it to one other person. So, I don't know. It just
Yeah, actually,
depends.
can it be toxic?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what this
Okay.
is for.
This is okay. So there was a time where you weren't really playing much CS, and you benched yourself. Could you hear me? Sorry, I turned around there for a second.
No,
I so
no,
No,
you're gonna have
okay.
to repeat yourself.
Okay. So I remember a time where you benched yourself because, and this is like my first time playing with you, and you had benched yourself, and I remember telling Tux like, dude, what is up with this guy? He was so sick before. Like, why is he being so ass now? And then you benched yourself, and it was also though I think partly you weren't playing the game either. Like you were just like you said, burnt out or whatever, and you weren't playing with any of your old friends. Like that other team, like do you remember them? It was like I
Yeah,
think it was a YW team.
dude, it was YW all exclusive, bro.
Yeah, and then but then you didn't have any of your old friends, and you were probably feeling like, oh, all my friends are gone. Like maybe it's my time to move on or whatever you were going through mentally. But yeah, it was like it was just a funny experience where you don't calculate the intangibles there, like where like okay, sure, like I mean, it sucks that you weren't playing as much, but if you were playing as more, it would be more of a chemistry thing. Like, oh, okay, like, and that's one thing you're very good at is that yeah, okay, sure, you know you're having a bad game, but you'll make it up in some other ways. Like you'll try to set other people up.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I agree with that too from my experience playing with Laz. He has like he has these intangibles that a lot of other players don't have.
Yeah,
Surprisingly, like you'd be
yeah.
surprised how many players don't have the skill sets that you do, Laz.
Well, it's
Oh,
always
thanks, guys.
results, right? It's always like, oh, well, I need to get, and I can 100% agree that, like, I think I could get in that mindset. Like, if I'm not playing good, I'll get like, oh no, I need to play good. Like, I need to get kills. If I'm doing bad, so I'll get hyper focused on myself. But yeah, no, for sure, just playing the lands with you and like the games or like matches or whatever, it's yeah, for like I've kind of noticed like, oh, there's other aspects of like I could just yell or like even or like just think like, okay, what is something I can do to help? And sometimes it changes your play style, which ends up like you getting you more frags or like making you play better, start slowly get your confidence throughout the match, um, instead of just trying to like bulldoze through whatever the issue is.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's that's pretty true though. I mean, like even back in the day too, like when I was playing, like I played with some dudes that were pretty I don't want to use the word egotistical, but they definitely like had, like they're good players. Like they're really big frag superstars in my opinion, like for our level of playing. So like it was
Were
kind of
they
hard
though?
to. Well, some of them were. I mean, I think and it's tough too to play with people that like
Just name them.
constantly.
Just name
No,
them,
I'm not
dude.
doing. I'm not doing it. But I
Is
mean,
I know
there's.
who? Do I know who it is?
Oh, I'm sure you do. But like, I
Names
mean,
up.
no, no, not things up. But but no, I mean, when you play with people and like, it's like the constant banter and stuff, which is fine. But like, it starts to kind of hit you after a while, like where you're like the consistent low performer. And I think it was way different
What?
back then
Are you
too.
sure you're not talking about mains up?
Well, makes up brutal too. I mean, they definitely didn't make it a warm welcome for me for sure. I think I had like one decent
Oh,
match.
I know who you're talking about now. I won't say
Um,
the name. I won't say the name, but I
but
know.
but no, it's totally true. And I think the other piece of it all too is that like when I used to play, I mean, this is a good thing for anybody too, is like mental toughness too, right? Like, I mean, I can handle a lot of stuff, but there was some stuff internally that just like tilted me or just made me like so mad that I just couldn't focus anymore, and I just didn't care. So it was like it's good to see like a lot of players are like learning that now, and like learning how to like focus on not tilting and not being toxic, but just more like not reacting to negative things and just kind of getting around it. I think it's something you learn when you grow up too. Like I'm definitely way different about it than I am now
Yeah,
or back then.
I think the big evidence of that is like you look at a team like I forget their name, SK or Kaboom or whatever you want to call them.
The
But the
Brazilian
Fallen,
core.
yeah, that Brazilian core was you had Fallen doing really good. You had Cold Zero obviously doing amazing, but you had like the support guys like a Taco or Fur. I mean, mind you, they would all frag pretty good, but they had these guys that weren't necessarily like the all star, but they did all the things right and they were like working together. And I think sometimes people are quick to be like, oh, maybe I can just get a quick replacement for this guy and we'll do better. Like you're looking for a quick result instead of like a long term gain. And one team in particular that fit that mold, I don't know if you guys are gonna remember this team, but for Team Forbidden
In
with
Source.
Messiah, yeah, and Source
Yeah,
with Messiah in them,
yeah.
dude. we'd scrim them all the time, and I never felt like, oh shoot, like this guy got a crazy kill on me, or this guy's aim is insane. Nothing spectacular, but their teamwork was insane. Like you just felt like, whoa, like you were just getting wrecked because they would just work better together than your team is. And that's like the one team that like had a bunch of maybe like guys that weren't necessarily that skilled, but collectively they just worked well together. And people's mindset nowadays needs to be more about just work with the pieces that you have and try to make
Mm.
something happen.
Yeah, that chemistry thing is definitely a big thing. I would even say like even just having one player who doesn't fit that mold can change so much. I don't know if you guys have had similar experience, but I mean, I I, th- I believe this to be the case just because, and Laz is gonna know because of how badly he destroyed me at that first LAN, that Victoria LAN. But basically, it's like when we came into that LAN, the only difference that we had from our roster from Vancouver 2011 to Godicon 2012 was that we ended up getting Bouncer instead of Centrix. Right, Centrix basically just quit the game after that LAN, right? And the thing is, like that thing that you're describing, where it's almost like a well-oiled machine. That's how I felt about like that lineup that I played with for Vancouver 2011 when we had Centrix because like we ran through everything and it was just like everybody was just doing their part type of thing. But then when we ended up playing with Bouncer, it was just so different. We tried to like grind out scrims to like try to make it work, right? But like I could just feel that it just wasn't the same. Like I don't exactly know the reason why, but pretty much my point I'm trying to make is that even one person not being on the same page as you guys can make a huge difference.
Hmm. I think it's all like intuition too, like how you feel, right? Like I think it's kind of like that gut feeling, like you like having that person with your team, and like you can tell it's kind of forced, or you can feel like, oh, this is actually sweet, like he meshes really well.
Yeah, yeah,
I've had that too, where we like tried out people, and some people liked him, like not him specifically, but like a person, and then like some people didn't, and it was just kind of like trying to find that balance, right?
yeah,
But it's tough, especially online. And I think the biggest problem too is that, like, I mean, from what I'm seeing, and I mean, it might be different, but most teams now, like, they literally just look at stats and they're like, "Okay, I need the biggest fraggers, I need the biggest numbers, and like, let's mesh it." But that's not how teams are made. Like, personally,
I kind of want to say that you can tell a good amount from stats if you know how to interpret it properly. I think the biggest
yeah,
problem is that people basically just look at whoever has the highest number and then just look at that and then they're like, okay, I want that guy, right? But they're not
yeah,
looking at the right numbers. They're not looking at how many times is this person won a 1vx, how many times, like what is this actual plus minus. That's like a stat that I'm so surprised that there isn't more weight on it on ESA. Everybody always looks at FPR and ADR, but nobody ever looks at plus minus for some reason. And plus
yeah,
minus will
sure.
basically tell you, how many times he engaged somebody and whether he won or lost. Like what I'm saying is, there's a difference between somebody who's like 10-0 compared to someone who's like 20-15, for example, right? That guy is 20-15, may have had more kills, but ultimately he was only +5. And if anything, that kind of stat line should tell you that like he's somebody who just hunts frags, basically.
It's so true. Actually,
That is a good point.
it is a really good point. And like, I mean, kind of a weird little tidbit too about that is like with roster changes. Um, like this is going back a number of years, but back in 1.6, so my team, we literally never did roster changes. Like if we did, it was like one person. It was maybe because somebody was just done playing or whatever, but it was really rare. The best team in like our region, so like the Northwest, they were called Modus. So that had actually like old like big old ocean on there, and like a bunch of local guys in my city and like a bunch of other guys too. These guys were like all invite players, like really good players. And they did a roster change actually, I think with, I can't remember who they picked up, but they picked up somebody recently in like big numbers. But we played them at LAN and we like beat them, and we like every scrim we had, it was like always super close no matter what. But like you could tell like the mesh was totally off. Like they had this like cohesion with a unit for so long. They changed one player and it just drastically changed them, like
Yeah,
who they were.
yeah,
It's crazy.
Yeah. Sometimes that one guy getting replaced too is secretly like, see, there's two dynamics, right? You have the dynamic of the this ex player who in game is the entry fragger and he leads the pace of the team. Like I could say like maybe a Stewie 2K at one point. I haven't watched too much CS, but he was maybe at one point like he kind of set the pace for his team and he was playing aggressive or whatever. And then you have that's funny. And then you have people that are outside the game that set the tone for the team. And sometimes you need that kind of guidance, and that guy leaves, and then you don't have that voice or that leader to kind of like calm you down or make the chemistry work between everyone. I don't know. Yeah, it makes a big difference. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors that go into making a great team. And
That's a oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say a really good example of that is so Complexity in 1.6, they had like their roster of like Sunman, Fraud. Oh god, this is gonna be hard.
Oh,
Warden,
Sunman,
Storm.
Fraud, Worm, Storm, and
Trip.
Trip. Okay, they cut Trip, and Trip was literally like their IGL. He was so good on their team, so good. They cut him for, was it Rambo or something?
Yeah, they got Rambo.
They were
made a
awful.
trade. Yeah, they made a trade. Yeah,
They were
got
awful.
Rambo.
And I actually saw like Twitter exchanges like actually like not long ago, and yeah, like Fraud even said like, man, cutting you is like the hardest thing we've ever done, and like we regret it every day, and like it was so shitty of us to do. And they were like happy that Trip won that CGS season or whatever when they beat them or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Like I don't know. I think Ross. Anyways, we went off on a tangent, but like roster changes, I feel like it's like last decision.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
I
that's
just
like a game changer. Like it makes a difference. Like again, it's pace and like attitude, and someone needs to steer the ship in game and someone needs to steer the ship outside of game, and so usually it's both, right? Usually your guy who's setting the pace in game sets the pace outside of the game, but I don't know, sometimes it can change or whatever. It just depends on the team dynamic.
Sometimes that person just needs some help. Like it's hard to be able to do both of those things, honestly. But
Yeah.
I was
don't
just
know.
gonna point out. I was gonna ask actually, like, what is the timeline or what conditions would you say have to be met for you to be like, okay, this roster is done. Like we need to make a change.
I think if it's just like results of like quite a bit of time goes by where you just tell like everything's just hitting a slump where nothing is getting better. Like you're losing scrims, everyone's getting angry. Not even angry, just that the energy is different too. I think you might have to really reconsider it. My opinion.
I think it's more of a like, yeah, okay, you losing matches and stuff like that is obviously an indicator that the roster needs to change. But I think another big one is like if people can't play together.
Oh yeah, that's a
One
big
team
one.
I was
Yeah.
on, yeah, I was on one team and there was like kind of an unnecessary amount of toxicity to like it was just kind of like two guys that just the team was in a slump and these two guys just weren't gonna play together, and there was like this like stupid amount of toxicity, and I don't know, it was just really weird. So anyways, it was one of those things that these two guys needed to just like take a break from each other or just get the ego out of there. But they had come from a high, like they were really good and they weren't doing so good anymore, and it was hard for them to accept that aspect of the game or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely hard to when people don't want to change their attitudes about stuff or how they want to see the game. I think that at that point it's so difficult. Like what do you do at that point when the results just aren't coming in? If somebody's not willing to change or adapt or anything like that, like I mean, at that point, I would say if it for me like the condition would be if there were people who weren't willing to change their attitude or their approach to something when it's clear that the current result is just simply not working, and maybe this will be like a month or more than a month, maybe like I guess on the level of like pro teams, I would say this is probably like 6 months or so, right? But I guess sometimes you can just tell based on like people's attitudes when something just doesn't work. They just refuse to change their belief about it.
Yeah. It's actually funny too, is like to kind of bring this into like current stuff that's going on, is I don't necessarily agree with Thorin very often, but like he actually made like a really good point about a roster change. So this whole thing with going with the MIBR stuff, and I'll kind of quote what he wrote here. He said, "The only NA team to win a CS:GO major broke up, didn't even attempt to defend it. Now the best team in NA in history in terms of body of work, high-level opponents won, and consistency is going to make a roster move after their best run ever. Just NA things."
Mm-hmm.
It's actually true.
It's 100% true. It's
Like
actually
it's
really
ridiculous.
embarrassing.
You think about it, like just because Stewie and Tarek are free, like why are you jumping the gun? Like, don't get me wrong, like they're good players. Like I'm not ignoring that, but like look at Liquid. I mean, they've been having insane results. I mean, yeah, they haven't beaten Astralis, but Astralis is literally like shitting on everyone,
Yeah,
right?
they're the
Yeah,
best team
who
right
has?
now.
Yeah, who has beat Astralis?
Like seriously, like
And
you
I
can't.
think that's maybe their mindset. I get that that's both of their mindsets. Like, oh, let's do this roster swap, and then let's see where we can go from here. Maybe it'll like push us both over the edge. But you're replacing Taco, which in my opinion is more of a supporty type player, and Nitro, who's their in-game leader still, I think, and also a support player. With
Well, you don't they don't know if they're replacing Nitro yet, do they?
no, they're not replacing Nitro. No, I'm just saying their roles. Like
Oh, okay,
Nitro
yeah.
and Taco were like now you have Elige, Naf, Stewie 2K. Like this, you're getting too many fraggers now. So now it's just Nitro. Who's gonna, like, you know what I mean? What's so all like? There's too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. That's gonna be that team. Whereas it's the opposite for MIRB. That's Did I just call them MIRB? No,
Yeah,
no.
you did. You
MIBR,
did.
MIBR.
It's MIBR.
Like that's the opposite. Is they're actually they're getting rid of the hard fragger and they're bringing in a support player. I mean, KNG is a hard fragger, which is fine because that'll replace Tarek. But now they're gonna have another support in that lineup, which is gonna, yeah, I don't see Liquid doing too hot.
It just sucks because like obviously money and stuff gets in the way too. Like I mean, you look at Liquid, and I'm looking at the rankings right now, and like they're second in the world right
And
now.
they lost their coach.
Well, they lost their coach, right? So yeah, like MIBR, like bought. I shouldn't say stole. They bought, good players from their that roster, but it just sucks. Like I don't know. I feel like it's almost like money talks a lot too, right? And I think like orgs like make deals, but obviously like it's up to the player too. But it sucks that like I don't know. I mean, I feel like if I was number two in the world, I'd be like, man, I want to stick this out. Unless like it was just so bad in like internally or something, but I have no idea.
Yeah, you never know sometimes. Like
Yeah,
you
it could have
actually
been
never
Taco
know.
being like, I want out. And then you can't argue with the guy. Like if he's just not going to play, then you have to trade.
Like one of the biggest in this is gonna sound like a bandwagon thing. I mean, like I have a few favorite teams, and I mean Astralis. I really like Astralis, and not just because they're number one in the world, is because like those guys literally are defining everything we just talked about. Is like think about when they had Kerrigan. They literally had Kerrigan forever. Like they tried everything to make it work. Like it wasn't like they just gave up. Like they tried. I honestly think almost everything they could have. Then
Yeah.
made a decision to get rid of him. Picked up Glaive. Glaive is like a really good IGL. Then they picked up Magisk or whatever, or Kirby and stuff. It didn't work out with Kirby, and they tried that out for a while too. And then Kirby like shaded out and left like last second. So it wasn't even them.
I mean, to be
So
fair, to be fair, it's not like it didn't work out. I mean, they won a major with that lineup too, right? So
yeah, well, yeah, you know what I mean though. Like I think Kirby's like expectations was probably way different, and who knows? Maybe he just felt like he didn't click with those guys. I don't know.
yeah, that's possible. I mean, if you look at that core of Dupree, Device, and Zipnix, like they've been around together forever. Like actually forever.
It's cool. They're one of the teams like I really admire because like they really have like stayed true to like a really close rock. Like in my opinion, like which I think is sick. Where like you look at Nip, and I mean Nip was like that for a long period of time, but then they cut Flaren, and then they got rid of Freiburg. Oh man, I had to think about it. And look at where they are now. Like they constantly move like fourth and fifths around now.
Yeah, I mean, they even got rid of Exist too, right? Because he's moved to Fnatic. It's been
Oh
a
yeah,
while
yeah.
now. Yeah.
and he was one of the originals. Like they literally got rid of three of the original guys, and then they brought in these three new dudes, and that's great. Like don't get me wrong, I think it gets to a point too where you want to bring in new talent, but I don't know. At the same time, it's just kind of one of those weird things too. But it's not really a perfect equation or formula for it. I think it just depends on a variety of.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to bring up something. You brought up new talent, right? Like, what do you consider? Like, let's just say you have a team right now, right? It's like, at what point would you replace somebody who's, or what at what point would you like actually look at somebody who's a new talent as opposed to like keeping somebody who's been around forever and maybe they accomplished like big things, but at what point do you actually make that decision? It's like, hey, we're gonna actually try to take a chance on this guy. Like even for any of your teams, let's just say for like that as an example, if we were let's just say we were like a main team or whatever, and we were looking to pick up somebody, right? Like what factors would make you want to choose the person who's a young talent as opposed to somebody who's played in main for the last like 4 seasons or something?
I mean, Counter Strike is a game where I mean, it's all about like proof and results, right? Like you see their history, you can see everything that they've accomplished, and you can kind of make the judgment there. So you would have to, I mean, obviously want someone with the experience of like, oh, I know this person can play at this level or whatever. But also attitude, I think, is the big one. Like, are you a young guy that's like super thirsty, or are you like an old guy that's like, or sorry, are you an old guy that's, or a young guy that is like kind of arrogant? Like one guy that comes to mind is Uber. Like, yeah, that guy is good. I don't know what team he's on now, but I mean, I remember when he was first coming up, people were like, "Oh, this guy's like really, really good." Yeah, but I mean, where is he now? I heard his attitude is shit. So like, why do you have that attitude for no reason?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's the issue, right? Is some people are just some
Yeah,
young kids just have the attitude, and you know what you're getting with the other one.
agree. I think for me, like, oh man, it's kind of tough because like it's obviously like way lower tiered and stuff. But I mean, we we just like when we played early source and stuff, we actually had like a really good relationship with a lot of people. So we started noticing like certain players and like we 10 man or scrimmed with them or they rang or we rang for them and stuff. Like there was a few people that we just were like, man, this guy would be really good on our team. Like I think he would mesh really well and the attitude was huge and there's like that motivation and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all about like I think at the end of the day like personality was really important. But I also think like kind of what Persian said too is like that like hunger to like play, but not in like a way where it's going to be a negative impact on your group where they're so toxic, like Symbol back like 5 years ago, where he was like insanely toxic, but so insane, but so toxic. Like I would never do that. Like I would have booted him for sure
Yeah,
if I
I
was Liquid. I would have hated it.
Okay, so actually, I'm gonna bring up toxicity right now about teams, and this is at the pro level. And so in the NHL, Andrew Ference recently did an interview where he talked about the team and like, he was an older guy on Edmonton when he was captain, and the team was going through this phase of, he basically said the young kids were going out and partying till not even the young kids, but he said the players were going out and partying till 3, 4, 5 in the morning and then coming and playing hockey the next day, and it really upset him. And he said that like, how could you be playing at a top level, and winning games when you're out till 5 in the morning getting plastered the night before? Now he's been getting grilled today over that interview, but because it was alluding to two players that got traded, basically Hall and Eberle specifically. Um, and there was like already a lot of rumors swirling around those two, and they thought they were, oh, we're amazing and blah blah blah, but and they're doing good on their respective teams, but the culture, he said, of that team was affected because your top players weren't trying, so you had the room split with like people that were saying don't try, which was that side of like partying. They're like, stop trying so hard, it's just a game, relax. And there was these young guys, but the older guys were like, listen, you don't understand, this time you have is so finite that you're gonna blink and you're gonna be 34 and you're not gonna be fast enough. or good enough to play.
Hmm.
And Counter-Strike is amplified. You got 5 people. You put a young guy on the team. Mahone, you even said it. If you feel like the chemistry isn't there, it's hard to play with that person. And
Yeah.
it's hard to critique them too and like help them, because what are they going to just freak out every time you tell them that's a bad angle to peak? Like we should do this or whatever. Like they don't have the mental fortitude.
Yeah. I think and actually just to kind of touch on that too is like I think the biggest issue is people that respect you too. Like I think if like for me for instance, if I had this team, let's say, and I was a main, I would kind of hope that like the person that we picked up like respected us as players, not in the sense of like being super toxic and like thinking we're shit. Like if you're not having a good game and where they're just gonna bash you, right? Like it's kind of like when Stewie joined C9 and he said he was playing with like nothing and on all these other guys that he looked up to. It was kind of that, right? Like so he learned from them and like respected what they were doing.
Hmm.
That's a huge thing too. But if you have a kid with an attitude, it sucks. Like it just makes it too hard.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, that reminds me of something where, uh, that's why I actually think it's such a good idea, at least from my experience and probably your experience too, Laz, to basically just pick up within people who have played at LANs, like people you've met before, type of thing, where you basically see what they're made of, like maybe you've even had a chance to play against them, type of thing, right? I think it's definitely easier to kind of get that respect that you're talking about when you pick up people who've like attended the same LAN that you have. I mean, that was basically, the same idea that I had when I joined you guys, right? Like we had this mutual respect that, we both played against each other. We both know like how good we are, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah, and actually one other thing, it's like the whole respecting, yeah, is a big one. Like I don't know why that's not like a two-way street when it comes to like people who are trying out and the people um who are like holding the tryout, I guess, right? Like I feel like there might be some kind of culture within players now where it's just like, oh, I don't even care what team it is, like I just want to play and like get experience, type of thing. I just want to have that line that said that I played main or advanced in my profile, right? But like from what I notice, it doesn't really matter if you have that line in your profile, because at the end of the day, it does actually come down to how good you are and what your attitude's like. I think too many people try to put like that value on, oh, like I played a few matches at main, but ultimately it doesn't really matter unless you're gonna actually like have something from it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
true.
experience or like I wouldn't say results, but like when you look at the people that like you can kind of tell the people that are jumping around with like 10 different teams, it's like pretty noticeable right off the gate. Like, oh, okay, well, you've been on like 4 different teams. Like, I'm not going to name the player, but there's a player in the local scene uh that's like, if you look at his profile, he's been on like multiple teams in a season, and like he's just all over the map, and like but he thinks he's really good. And you're just kind of like, dude, like this doesn't mean you're good. Like you playing on a bunch of teams, you're just like a filler boy right now,
Yeah.
because people can't find a better player to hang out with. Like you're replaceable. Like you're a temp essentially. And so that's, I don't know. And he's a young kid too, and like, I don't know. He's just right now maybe a little too full of himself.
Hmm.
But hopefully, I mean, maybe he'll pull a simple and he'll figure it out. Just like, he needs guidance. Like Naf got guidance from you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. Like
That's what
I,
I'm saying.
like just saying, guys, like coincidence. Like he goes to one LAN with me, we win it, and he's now a pro player. Like,
I think you should start charging people. Start charging people.
but you know what? Actually, he's such a funny example because like I love NAF. Like I like if I'm a Team Liquid fan, it's because of NAF because I think he is like he's such a nice dude and like he's overall just a genuinely nice dude. But when we were playing and our fifth bailed and we were looking around and we're like, hey, who do we pick up for a fifth? And like he came up in the conversation and there was some big doubt because everyone's like, we don't know who the heck this kid is. Like he's online. Like everybody thought he cheated, to be honest. Like everyone's like, this kid's probably cheating. And I was like, played a couple scrims with him. He was insane. I was like, oh my god, dude. Took a gamble, worked. It's awesome.
Do you remember before that LAN, we actually scrimmed against each other on train? Do you remember that?
Yeah. I never forget Mahone.
Oh man. And the funniest thing is also just like it's so weird. Like I remember because I had Trick Systems on my team for that, right? Which is Naf's brother, right? We were talking about trying to get him to play, but I don't remember the reason why that didn't happen. Like,
I wooed him.
oh my god.
You know,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead, man. I want to hear
I,
your
I, was,
side.
I was just gonna be like, I was just gonna say it's honestly so weird that basically it's like for Trick Systems and Naf at that time, like that was like both their first LAN, and then they're playing on like different teams, and it's so
Yeah.
weird because like I remember seeing like their mom driving them together, right? And then when they got out of their cars, it's like, oh, so one of them's Naf, one of them's Trick Systems, and they're like we're playing on different teams. Like, isn't that kind of weird? Don't you think?
It was so weird. Their mom was like, I don't understand. so,
Yeah.
so she had to meet two separate teams, and we were like, oh hey, like, we're playing with Naf or Keith or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so funny. Like he was so young too, so like it was so weird. We're all like in our early 20s, just like, yeah, hey, what's up? We're gonna hang out with your like 14-year-old son. Oh, it was weird, but it was so funny though. But like, I mean, props to him too. Like, I didn't know him as well, and like one of my teammates knew him a bit better than I did, and I mean, we talked to him for a while, like me and him, like me, my teammate, and Naf, and like I was honestly unsure if he was even going to show up. Like, I thought he was going to dodge, like just because he was young and he never gone to a LAN and stuff like that too. And
Yeah,
I think the hugest factor was that Trick Systems was going, so it was a huge saving grace.
yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. You got to take those risks though. Like, we played a couple games with him. He was nice. Like, he was a different personality than our team. But I mean, again, it was like so much talent that we were like, holy shit. Like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know. I mean, we just told him, like, if you're going to potentially go pro, like, this is a good place for you to start doing this because, like, it's a local LAN. And I think we, like, sold it to him. And he was like, okay.
Wow,
It was awesome.
that's crazy if you actually had that conversation with them.
Well, yeah, we had to because like we weren't even sure, man. Like, no offense to Naf, but like nobody, like, he was super popular online and people knew who he was, but like nobody knew if he was going to go to a LAN. Like, why would he? He was like young. He was like under 16.
Yeah, he was like 14 or 15 at the time.
Yeah.
I was like 17, 18 at the time. So that
Mhm.
means you were, what, 22, 23, right?
Yeah, dude.
30.
30.
Dude, child labor. You're like hiring kids to come carry you at land.
Listen, I'm just like prestigious, HR, man. I just like we found him. I'm like, okay, we're making this kid. Same, and to be completely honest, we also picked up JDM back in our
That's
dream
true.
days.
That is true.
And I know none of my teammates will ever give me the credit that I deserve because I actually picked up Josh. So
Well,
yeah,
Naf and Josh, you owe Laz your CSGO
Dude,
careers.
I'm just saying, like, I should just be like a manager, dude. Like, I'm just like, yo, hook me up, dude. Like, I'm a recruiter or something. But no, it's so crazy though. Like, it was kind of terrifying too because like I was so used to going to LANs and we were like, okay, like if this kid bails, like, do we have to go all the way and get him? Like, and he's like so far away.
Yeah,
from
you lived in Maple Ridge, right?
Yeah, so that's far. Like, that would have been an extra like 2 hours for me to go get him. Easy, like one way. So like an extra four hours. I was like, fuck. But it's cool though, and like look at where he is now, right? Like, I mean, I think he had every intention of going pro. Like, he was so good, in my opinion. And then, well, obviously now look at him, but he, yeah, like you got to break that LAN experience, right? And that's a whole other game, I think. And I think maybe people think it's not that true, but I think it's completely true.
Yeah.
So would you say you popped a 14-year-old boy's land cherry?
Oh, 100%. 100% I did. Dude, I'll confirm that right now, dude. Like, I will to this day always vouch that he went to the first LAN ever with my team. And the best part is we did win that LAN, so that actually felt really nice too. It would have sucked if we lost. Which one was dead.
Oh man,
But
I'm
like,
so pissed about that loss though.
dude,
So
like,
close, so close.
the high caliber team, just like
Caliber team. I wonder if you mention this, like I wonder if if you bring Naf on here ever, and you bring this up, would he be like? Would it be something he remembers? He's like, oh yeah, like you know what I mean, like memorable to him
I don't know,
to the
man.
I think
to the
so.
point,
I think so.
Maybe.
I think
because that
so.
would be kind of crazy.
I kind of feel like he'd probably brush it off and be like,
Really?
yeah, I think maybe. Well, like if you listen to him in the way he talks, like he's
That's
pretty.
true.
But like I think it was more meaningful to me because like for me, like winning a local land like that was a pretty big deal for me. Not really him. And the guy's been to like a million tournaments now, so like, he's probably like,
No, but
But I
that
mean,
first one is like huge. It doesn't matter, dude. I think, yeah, I bet you if you bring this up with him, he'll laugh and be like, yeah. I mean, of course, he's gonna have other memories that he remembers. He's like, oh yeah, I remember like, going to this major or whatever. But
Winning E League
those,
season 2.
yeah. Oh, just E League season 2. But no, I remember the local one for sure. Yeah. No, but that first one is always like kind of crazy. Like I remember the first local one here. We played against we lost against a main team. Actually, funny. The same thing that happened at Godicon between with us, Mahone. Like me
What,
and
the
Laz
screen
versus you
sharing
guys.
thing?
No. Oh my
Not
god.
screen sharing, the ghost thing.
No. The
What was
one
it?
where it was me and Laz versus you and your
Oh,
buddies.
yeah.
And we won Inferno, and then we lost the finals on
Mhm.
a BO1 or whatever. No big deal. That is actually the exact way I lost a local land before, like my first local land. We played Inferno, we beat a main team, and then we lost in the finals on Dust 2. Yeah, it was fucking rough times.
but it's I'm actually really curious. Like that's a good point, Mahone. Like I don't know if he'll like have like a memory of that, like I, but I know for us, like it was a huge deal because we really wanted to win that land too, and there was so much potential for that land. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I honestly, I feel like, I think if I was in his position, obviously I wouldn't know for sure, but like I always remember, like to this day, even though I've been to so many lands now, right? I still hold like my very first land in like in a very, what do you call it? In like good light.
Prestigious.
Yeah. Like it was a very good time for me. It was very memorable. Like I hold it much higher than many other events that I've been to.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's just it's weird. Like it's just comfortability too, right? Like I mean, that was a whole other ball game too. Like all of us were like early 20s or like almost mid 20s, and like with this young kid, and it's kind of like actually the reference that I was thinking of too is when like Sean Garrers and Semphis and those guys picked up now or
Swag.
Swag.
Yeah.
And he was like the same thing, like super good player, young kid, but just was like not really like socially there. Like he was just like probably really nervous and like a little uncomfortable too. And yeah, it's just funny. Like when I watch those old videos on YouTube, I'm like, it's kind of how that was with Naf a bit. But like I mean, Naf's awesome, but like it
I
was just
guess that's
funny
true.
'cause
Because like Sean Garrett and Sempis just yelling, and then like Swag just doing his thing. That's basically like your team at the land too.
yeah, I guess.
Whoa, toxic. AKA,
Toxic.
you did nothing.
Nah, dude, I beat a few pro players. I'm okay with it. But I think again, like everybody has their own expectations in CS. Like I don't know, but whatever. That's a whole other conversation too. But I don't know. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, we've been hour 20 basically.
Oh, thanks, Laz.
I know I couldn't stop talking. Dude.
Hour 20. I don't know how you want to close this, but
I want to close it with this was a lot of fun. I hope you do it again. And
Yeah.
maybe an outro of some sort.
You
we'll
wanna
work
do
it
it, Mo,
out.
or do you want me to?
You do it, Laz. You're good at this stuff.
Yeah, come
Oh
on, Laz.
god, so much hype for me, and like it's not even like a deliver. Anyways, okay, well, for anybody that does listen to this, like really do appreciate it, of course. Like, we'll probably give a bit better introductions next time. But it's just three of us in Pacific Northwest just kind of sharing our opinion on current trends and old memories and kind of shooting the shit, and that's kind of the whole point of this thing. We're hoping to bring like a few guest stars and stuff to talk about like just their past and their experience and stuff like that, and kind of have it more casual than would be with like Thorne or Richard Lewis and stuff. I don't really want to name who we can potentially get, but there is a few people I'm hoping we can grab that's from the pro scene. But definitely appreciate everybody listening, and hopefully they found it kind of entertaining. It's probably kind of hard to follow with like a lot of inside stuff, but yeah, we definitely appreciate anybody listening right now.